Hi, welcome back to this third and last appointment with Meet the Makers. In these days, we have listened to 23 different works coming from 26 different countries, from Italy to Argentina to Chile to Jordan and almost all of Europe. A really fascinating journey, acoustic journey that allowed us to share ideas, practices, and inspiration. And now I just want to move and meet all our makers. And the first one is Charlotte from France. Hi, Charlotte.
Hello.
Thank you to being here with us.
Thank you to have me, and thanks to IFC team to make all this possible. And thank also to the other makers. I'm very proud to be among you today.
Thank you. Charlotte, your piece, Under Another Pain, is the third piece that we listen in this conference that is about prison. But we listen to a story from a different point of view. We listen to stories from people that are outside of the prison, and they are most women, sisters, daughters, wives. The first thing that I would like to ask you is that usually your works are not narrated documentaries where your voice is not so present. In this piece, you have a role in the narration. So I want to ask you, did you plan to tell this story in this way since the beginning? And what was your role inside the story? What convinced you to use your voice in this way?
Yeah, thanks, Daria. Yeah, it's true. I'm not used to use my voice or my presence in my documentary. I tend more to erase myself. And also for this documentary, it really wasn't planned. But it became a necessity for me because while I was discovering the daily life of this woman, and also we were building trust together, I was really struck by their difficulty to speak about their experience. And for a lot of them, it was the first time that someone was asking them what prison changed in your life. And still they are very aware of their situation, but they are trapped into silence because of the shame that prison produce. And for me, this was one of the biggest violence of the prison on them. And so I really want this to appear in the documentary because yeah, it was very important, at least for me. And but I didn't knew how to make this appear, because how to make appear the silence, no, the impossibility to tell things. And so I decided to use my voice to do it, to tell what was left into the silence. But but to do it, I was like very, very afraid to speak for them, like to steal their experience, because it would have been very paternalistic and really not appropriate. And I was also afraid that the listener could feel trapped into like my presence, like if I say what you have to think or feel. So I had to think a lot to how I wanted to write this, like my presence in the documentary. And at the end, I found this solution to be very clear about where I was speaking from. And so that's maybe why the process of the way I worked on this documentary is a kind of red line, no, in all the piece. Because I wanted to be very clear with myself and with the listener who I was and from where I was talking. And so I'm just this white middle class documentary maker who arrived in this world and doesn't know a lot of things and makes mistakes also, and to show also how the fact that some women talked, like they had this possibility to put into words the experience. That's how I could also see strength into this situation who could seem desperate. So yeah, that's how I try to think my presence and in the piece. And I don't know if it works, but I hope.
For me, what works very well. And I have to say that the relation that you have built between you and the women is really genuine. So I would like to know, how do you meet them, and how did you find the right way to have this kind of a relation with them?
Hey, yeah. Well, it took me a very long time to meet them because also at the beginning, and I was a bit lost myself. I was trying the way that I'm used to, trying to find contacts, try to find people who can facilitate your enter in this world, like people who work for association maybe or stuff like this. And I was really not able to find anything because actually the families of prisoners are very, very isolated. So at the end, the only solution I had was to just go at the gate of the prison. And so I choose one prison, one day, and I was going there every week for a month, and sometimes not speaking to the people, so they just can see my face and we can have a coffee and little by little, trying not disturbing them. I was explaining what I was doing there, and at the end, with time, some women accepted to let me come to their house because that was what I wanted to do. I didn't want to make like a small interview like this, a bit stolen. I really want to spend time with them to really understand what they were going through. And so I wanted to go in their home because I wanted also to record their daily life. I wanted to, in a way, to make the prison not the main character of this. I wanted really this woman to be the character, but I wanted to to record how in their daily life of this woman, the prison is present, no? Resonates, no?
Yes.
And so, yeah, I meet them like this, and yeah, it took some time, but and also I speak with a lot of other women, but they didn't want to be recorded or that need to come to their house.
Okay, and last question is about the sound, because listening to your piece, I felt that this sound that comes from their daily life reminds me in some ways the sound of the inside, no? Is a correct observation? There's something more that you want to share with us?
Well, I'm really happy that you hear it in that way, because that's what I try to do. It's to just with daily life sound. There is really no sound from inside the prison because I was even not allowed to go inside, and so there is just daily life sounds, and who can seem very casual, because it's, I don't know, it's the bus, the train, the cooking, stuff like this that we also
the
experience.
heart. No?
Yes, there is also the heart of the mother, yeah. And so, but I try to use this sound in the editing in a way that they recall the prison. So it's just little things, but for example, I was very careful about the sound of the keys, the reverberation in the stairs, using rough cuts also sometimes with some sounds to make feel some violence, and also use the silence, because sometimes it's a choice that I make to don't put any sound behind the voice of the woman, to also make feel a kind of loneliness also. So yeah, I'm happy if you heard prison in this, because there is not real prison, but it's the mental prison.
Okay. Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Daria.
Thank you.
To all of you.
Me too. So then we move to Austria with Claudia. Claudia, are you here?
Hello.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So the first thing and the important thing to say is that we have two pieces from Claudia on this IFC edition. One is the piece that we are going to talk about, and there is another one in the Aker Blomstrom section, and both of them are about villages, if I'm right.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. They're both about small villages, and they both start with the letter W, so they're easily mixed up, and it already happened. So there was a little bit of a confusion on the website. It's already fixed, but yeah, it's just a really odd coincidence that I did these two pieces about two villages with the letter W. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious to know, you have a special connection with villages?
Yeah, I am from a small village. Maybe that's my connection. Yeah, I like the people from small villages.
Okay, me too. So now we are talking about Whaling, the place and its people, right?
Yes.
Okay. This piece is about a complex man, an author not so well known in Austria, a complex story, and I don't want to spoil anything. I want to stay vague. So if you want, you can tell us what you want. I just would like to know what convinced you to tell this story that is not so, how to say, is not a easy story. So what was your purpose?
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything either. So I just want to say that I stumbled upon this book about violin by accident. It was written in the 1970s, and I was totally fascinated by it because it addresses some important issues in Austria, like the social inequality on the countryside and the capitalistic growth that started at this time. And I also saw that the writing was excellent. It was very radical. Like, for example, it doesn't care about grammar or spelling or punctuation. And it's also very funny, I thought. And yeah, there's an expert in the documentary who says that this author, Max Metz, is some kind of Quentin Tarantino of literature. I like this description very much, yeah. And I think it's a very good description. And although maybe the quality of his writing might be a bit lost in translation, I'm afraid, but I think what he wrote in the 70s is quite fresh and unique, even nowadays. And I thought, well, it's really a shame that the people in Austria don't know anything about him. He's completely unknown, like not only in the broad public, but also in the literature scene. So I thought, how can I make a feature about him that maybe he would appreciate as well? And yeah, I think the result is a documentary about the author, but also a documentary about media and the power of media. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but I think what he did in the 70s kind of predicts or reflects the situation we have now with the social media, where everybody pretends to be somebody else or pretends to be more interesting or more beautiful or more successful. So yeah, I think what he did is really relevant today.
Yeah, I have to say that was not so easy in some way to how to say, to follow during the quote, but also I have to say that your piece made me really curious. So I really would like to read in my language
Yeah,
something about this
I
author.
hope so. Maybe that some point it will get maybe translated, and then maybe Quentin Tarantino would get a hold of it, and maybe he can make a movie out of it.
Ah, that's good.
Yeah.
Claudia, as we read in the title, is a story about the author, but it's also a story about a village and its people. I have to say that I wanted to hear more from these villages and this village and its people. But there is not so much sounds or people from there. Is this a choice, and why did you make it?
Yeah, well, I have to say something. Weiling is a super, super small village. Actually, it's not even a village. It's just an area with 5 or 6 houses, I'd say. So I
So
didn't
maybe
meet a
you
lot.
met all the people.
Yeah, I met almost all the people in there. And I mentioned in the piece, it's more place than people. So I talked to everybody at the place, and almost everybody didn't know anything about Max Metz. So yeah, that's one reason. And I also, the other reason maybe is that when Max Metz is talking about Weiling, then I think he didn't talk about the place, the specific place, but for him it was more like a metaphor for the countryside in general. So yeah, this maybe could also be a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have any reaction from the audience after the broadcasting? Someone write you or with some question about this author? What did happen?
Yeah, we had many reactions, but I can't really talk about them without spoiling everything. So yeah, I guess you have to listen to it then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
So now we move from Austria to Finland. Suvi. Hi, Suvi.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here.
So, Suvi, your piece is Revenge of a Woman, no?
Yes.
And you play with stereotypes, and you did it in such a ironic and funny way. So, and it's not so easy. I mean, work with this kind of topic in this way and this in this original way. So you mix fiction and interviews in an organic way, I think. I like to know from you how this idea pop up in your mind.
Well, before Revenge of a Woman, I had just made a radio documentary or radio theater about evolution of love. And after that, I was really, really full of love. Well, I don't know, but I needed something else. And for some reason, I started to be interested in vengeance. And when I started to explore anger and aggression, I found that there is not much information about information or description about women's aggression or anger, and different rules apply in regulating the expression of female and male aggression. And I think that was mind-blowing because everyone has aggressive feelings, but these aggressive emotions of women are taboo. And of course, taboos are really always really interesting topics.
Yes, I agree. I agree. This is an episode of a series, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you like to tell us more about the other episode? What's gonna happen?
Well, shortly I can say that yes, this is the first episode, and in this episode, Saila starts to revenge. And surprise, in next episodes, Saila continues revenging. And her vengeances are always passive-aggressive revenges because women's aggression is usually passive. And for example, she's revenging to her ex-working place because she got fired. And her vengeance is to be gorgeous. So gorgeous that her ex-workplace is going to back her back to work. So she fakes that she is successful and she has new and better working place, even though she's actually jobless. And she also meets a lot of characters who has changed their lives by revenging. For example, she is interviewing Robocop about Robocop's emotions. For example, shame. Robocop is full of shame. She's talking with Stephen King's Carrie about period. Carrie was killing other people because the period thing in the shower. And in the end, she's doing her biggest vengeance in the dark side with Darth Vader. And I can spoil everything, and I can say that in the end, after all this vengeance, hate, bitter feelings, anger, Saila learns something, and she learns that hate and love comes always together. It is not possible to choose just one. If you choose to love, you also choose to hate.
Okay. Suvi, I read that you did ask to the audience a sort of contribution, no? After the broadcasting, I mean, I think. And this did help in writing the series. Would you like to explain us more? Because it's not so common to, how to say, to use the contribution of the audience for writing the next episodes, if I understood right.
Well, we collected stories before we write the whole series, but I can tell that in the series we are blending fact and fiction together, and it means that I wrote a script that is a story, like a tale, but the story is based on real experiences of real people. And in the Finnish Broadcast Company, we collected revenge fantasies from listeners. And I have used these fantasies and thoughts in script. For example, in 6 episodes, there is a club of anonymous fantasy revengers, people who are fantasizing about revenging, and they are telling the stories we got from the listeners.
Okay, so you collect the audience thought before writing.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. 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 Thank you, Suvi. And did you have any reaction after you broadcasted the stories?
Yes. We have noticed much, and we have get much publicity after publishing this podcast. And I have been telling about women's anger in radio and television and newspapers. I think that this topic is really interesting, and people really like to hear about this taboo.
Yeah, but did you have more? Did you raise more observational comments from the males or from men's? Sorry, or from women's?
Well,
women?
The feedback have been really nice, and there have been no attacks from, for example, males,
yeah,
or things like that. So it's been really. I have been really a bit surprised because I have thought that maybe there would be more attacks or more critics, but not much. And I have get the good feedback mostly from men.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Sylvie.
Thank you.
So now we move on from Finland to Jordan. Tala, are you here?
Hi, hi, how are you?
Tala, how are you? So nice to meet you.
I'm good. You too. I'm really happy to be joining you.
We are really glad to have you because it's not so common to hear pieces in Arabic language. And so, yes, it's a big pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, and I'm so happy that I was able to actually understand some of other people's languages as well through the translation that you've done. So it's a great job what you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Tala, this episode is part of a series, dedicated to sensitive issues, really sensitive issues, gender, sexual health, sexual orientation, and in this episode in particular, the topic is abortion. That is a very difficult topic to deal with, no? So I would like, would you like to tell us more about this series and why did you decide to make it?
Yes, of course. So as you said, it's a much larger project. So far, we have produced almost 5 seasons, and we're working on the 6th. And in each season, we have 10 episodes. So that's almost 50 episodes, and this is only one. We chose this topic in particular because we like the whole gender and the taboo issue, because we feel that we rarely have that space to freely talk about these issues in the Arab world, or especially or in Jordan. Although the scene is and has been changing since let's say the last 10 years, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of rebellion against patriarchy. So we felt like sound, and especially podcasts, is a very good medium to discuss these issues, because it's really hard for the government or for any other entity to track sound. It's much easier to track written material, but sound is much harder. And so we thought that this is a very good medium, especially that it could also be the voices of the people could also be altered, which is an advantage. You get the personal characteristics of the person you're interviewing or the guest, but at the same time you can protect their identity, which is harder in video, and you don't get the personal vibe in written material, in written journalism. So we thought that audio is the best medium.
Yeah, this was my second question. So thank you for answering before. Yeah, it's not easy to talk about these issues, and yes, a podcast and audio is for sure one of the best medium for talk about this kind of issues. Did you have and do you have a sort of reaction by the listeners? What are the relation that you have with the listener?
So this show in particular, Salt, the production company, produces many other shows, but this show in particular is one of our most successful, and this kind of reflects the need for such shows and the need for a space to talk about these issues. We have a lot of people listening, a lot of people reacting specifically to this show. There's really much more support than there is backlash. I can rarely remember any kind of aggressive backlash towards the show. It has always been attracting the people who really want to listen and who really want to understand the complexities that come with these issues.
Okay, and how do you find the people that tell you their story? In this case, it is a so delicate, so intimate kind of story. How did you get her?
So on this particular episode, I did not produce it. Ban Murqawi, my colleague, did produce it, and I think the way she found she found her guest or the character is through personal network, we use a lot of social media. We use a lot of networking with the civil society organizations. They also help us get in touch with cases, but also social media is very strong. For example, Facebook, we like just write on groups that are interested in gender. We are doing this podcast about this topic. If you are interested, send us a personal message, and we receive a lot of messages through that way. And it's kind of, yeah, networking is really is very big, and word of mouth is very big in this part of the world. So we depend on that very much.
Okay. How many people are working in this platform in South?
And so far we're almost 15. So when this season of Aib, which has the episode that you listened to, we were 2 or 3 people max. Like one who was the founder and 3 freelancers almost. But now we're 15 full-timers. And we're talking about like maybe a period of 5 years, 4 to 5 years, which is huge. But this is also like a reflection of how much the podcast scene is growing in the region, and there's so much thirst for this Arabic content, especially the content that is brave enough to discuss taboos.
Okay, thank you. I think that your job is really important. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you for having us with you.
I hope to listen more from you.
Yes, we have season 6 coming soon, so maybe we will translate it.
Okay, please stay in touch. There will be
Of
other
course.
edition of International Future Conference. Okay.
We will for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tala. So from Jordan to Russia, Vladimir, are you there?
Hi there. Yeah, we're
Hi,
here.
Vladimir.
Hello,
Nice
everyone.
to meet you.
And today with us, Svetlana, she's my wife, and she's
And,
my editor and my contributor to a lot of pieces, including this
Hello,
one.
Svetlana.
Good to
Hello
have
there.
you with us.
Thank you.
So, what can we say? I really liked your piece. It was so refreshing, so fun to hear to these electric voices that always are, how to say, embodying our life, no?
Exactly.
Yeah. I would like to know what was the motivation that you find in produce this piece? Was more like I want to play with some electric voices and these weird sounds, or there was something more?
Well, I'm not very good in logically explaining things that came quite intuitively into my head. And like many people in our country and elsewhere in the world, in all countries across the world, I've been getting those calls every day at any time. And like many people, I got annoyed and I just had this idea of what should I do with it? And I started gathering those calls without knowing what should I do with them, because I intuitively felt that this could be quite a strong material to build something upon it in the future, and I didn't know why. And after that, I came with the idea. There was a common trait, there was a common thing about all those voices. They were very mechanic, and also they were very lonely. There was no other background sounds to them, and I wanted to give them a life. And also, there's a conspiracy theory in Russia which made its way to the mainstream media as well, that if you say too much to those robots on your phone, if you say yes to them, they are smart enough to record your yeses and I will and your name, and they can make a larger sentences out of these tiny words and construct a longer sentence and call your bank and steal your bank account and do the nicer things. So I don't really think it's true, but I think it's quite funny, just kind of urban myth. And I wanted to do something with it. Well, that's how it started. I started collecting them through day and night, And I've had a great time cutting them into smaller pieces, a word or two words, and make longer sentences. I wanted to make them rhyme. I wanted to make them sing. And I used auto-tuning to match the intonation of the two lines. So it was, I had those voices in my head for over a week after that. They were present when I was sleeping, when I was walking, they were still in my head. It was quite terrible days.
Yeah, I can imagine. But I have to say that I loved your idea to give a soul to these voices and imagine something that is not a robbery, but it's something that is a more personal and maybe a romantic life.
Yeah, they should have a life. They try to construct our lives, but that's not the way it should be done. But actually, some people see this, suggest that there is a threat posed by the artificial intelligence and the artificial intellect. But I have to be honest, I just wanted to make a fun out of it. I just wanted to have a good time, locked in a room with a computer, cutting those words. I just wanted to put smile on people's faces. That's it. There's no highbrow thing. There's no intellectual background to that. That's just for fun.
Yeah, and it works perfectly, in my opinion. We have questions from our commentary field. Martina asks you, how did you find the sounds you worked with?
Actually, you have to do nothing. You have to have your phone and wait, like a fisher waiting for a fish. But this could happen at the least appropriate time. It could happen. You know that because it's universal for every country in the world. It could happen by night. It could wake you up. And sometimes I even phoned those farmers. I got their numbers and I phoned them to get into their contact book, into their database, so they could phone me back. Because there's one major drawback. There was one serious problem that I've had. I didn't have enough material. I didn't have enough emotions to make a love storyline, to make something working with it. So I said, I will call you and you will call me back and I will gather your words and I will make you a living person.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vladimir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then we move to Denmark. Nanna.
Hey.
Hi, Nanna. Thank you to be here.
Hey, nice to be here. It's a pleasure.
It's our pleasure, Nanna. I really loved your piece. It's so delicate, it's intimate, and I really appreciate it. And it's so organic in the construction between words, music, sounds, and Jørgen is right? Your main character,
yes,
is a really great storyteller.
Yeah.
So the piece starts with some words from Jørgen, and then we listen to him while he's listening to his voice from the past, from a tape.
Yes.
I'd like to know, did you find first him or the tape?
I found Jørgen first. It's a colleague of mine, an anthropologist, who made a research project about elderly LGBT persons and their social life. And well, because it's a quite vulnerable group who are more exposed to loneliness and social isolation. And during that project, he met Jørgen and was very moved by his story. So he passed him on to me because he thought there was, a story there to tell. So I spent many mornings in Jørgen's apartment in the nursing home where he lives. Just talking and then he remembered about that tape that he had made like 25 years ago, and he hadn't listened to it ever since. So we played it together, and I recorded him listening to it, and then interweaved it with my own present tape. So it became kind of a dialogue with his past self in the piece.
Okay. So sorry, because I lost you some seconds. So do you find the tape during your work with him?
Yes.
Was
Yes,
like...
he had it like guarded somewhere, like he had received it 25 years ago and maybe listened to it once, because that was at a time at his life where he hadn't come out yet. And then he had just put the tape away, and then he found it again. Yeah, when we were doing this, interviewing.
Okay, I think that your piece is not just about coming out, but
No.
or sexual orientation or something like this. I think that is more about recognition, self-recognition. That is something that regards all of us in many ways. So I'd like to know something more, because I read that you added a chapter after broadcasting.
Yeah, actually not like a concrete chapter, but when I was doing the editing with Ole Fugl, who I should mention because he's a wonderful editor, we were talking much about building the piece based on chapters. So there's the first chapter, which is Jørgen's past, his marriage, his first love. And the next chapter is where he meets Benny, who is his present partner, and where he comes out. And the third chapter of the piece is more reflective, like where he, the present time, where he sits in his living room and his daughter calls him. And that was for me really a gift, her calling at that very moment where we were talking about how did his family react to him coming out at the age of 80. Well, actually, when we were releasing the piece, Jørgen felt very anxious and very hesitant about it because of the stigmatizing, or the fear of stigma that is, I think, almost embodied in him. So to him, I think it was like coming out a second time, first to his like close relatives and then later to the public. But he was so surprised that actually people reacted in a very supportive way, like full of recognition and full of recognizing also his braveness for telling his story the way he does. So it's kind of an epilogue in a way that for him it has also been a way to give his testimony and feel, like he expressed that he felt it was an opening into the world, that he now felt seen and recognized as the person he is, and also especially by his family, who is like, that is what really matters to him, that they understand him and accept him.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with him?
Yes, I am. He's now 97 years old. I visited him yesterday because at the moment I'm preparing to make a short movie inspired from the audio piece, it's called Evening Ritual, and it will portray like the routine he has when his partner Benny comes to visit him at the nursing home every night, because they do exactly the same thing every night, which is also a part of the radio piece. So we will make a short movie about that, but it will be with actors, because to Jørgen it was too intimidating to to be part of the movie with pictures.
Yeah,
too much.
I can understand him. Nana, we have a question from our listening group from Austria. Why did you decide to reveal all the important information at the very beginning?
Yeah, I think it's because I feel the important information is maybe placed somewhere else in the story. As you said, to me, it's not a story about sexuality, or not only a story about sexuality and coming out late in life. It's more about love and identity. And I felt, and together with Ole, I talked a lot about that. Actually, the strong moment for us was when his daughter called him. So in a way, we have built the piece so it supports that moment. So we understand, or I hope we understand as listeners, what is at stake when he received this recognition from his daughter, that, he can follow his heart, as she says. And actually it was a very intuitive process editing the piece, where we very much tried just to go with the material and let us guide by what it kind of, just what made sense from the material in a way. So I didn't feel like telling a sensational story about coming out at the age of 80. It was more this thing about what happens when you are denying yourself for an entire life, and the liberation and possibility to bloom when Jørgen finally reveals himself to his family and the world.
Wow. Thank you, Nana.
Thank you.
Well, now we move to Chile. Catalina and Martin, are you there?
We are here.
Yes, you are.
Very happy to be here.
Nice to have you here with us. So, your piece, Crosses in the Desert, is a piece that brings to us one of the most relevant topic of this year, that is migration. And in this part of the world, we used to read every day about migration, about people that cross or maybe trying to cross the sea. And so for me, is one of the first time that I listened to a so intense story about migration and people that are crossing the desert. And I have to say that you really bring us to the Sonora Desert. And I really appreciate your piece and your way to tell this story. That starts with the words and the story of Alvaro, this man that put crosses in the desert where the dead bodies were found. So I'd like to ask you, first of all, how did you meet Alvaro, and what was your first idea in telling his story, in this story in particular?
Yes, well, we really wanted to tell a story about the humanitarian crisis happening in the border of Mexico and the US. Every year, thousands of Latinos and Latinas try to cross that border, and they are having like really hard times nowadays, especially with Trump administration. So we wanted to tell a story about what's happening there, and we contacted Dennis Maxwell. He was the producer on the field. He's a Chilean journalist as well, but he lives in the US. So we asked him to find a story for us. And we wanted especially to tell a story about someone helping the migrants, helping them to cross this border. So he found Alvaro and he presented his story to us, and we thought that it was perfect to tell the story of a man who has been putting, the last 6 years, he has been putting crosses in the exact places where dead bodies of migrants are found in the desert. So that's the story of how we found him, Alvaro Enciso. His work is amazing. He has put about 1,000 crosses already in the desert.
One of the most intense moments of your piece is the calls of the migrants in danger that call the 911. For me, was really touching. I have to say that is maybe one of the first time that I felt so touched from something that I listened to. How did you get these calls, this material?
So in the meantime that we were producing this story, we came across these phone calls in a story.
It was kind of an interactive piece.
Yeah, that the New York Times made, that they presented these phone calls. So we knew that this material was available somehow, and it was perfect for us because it was the real testimony of the migrants crossing the border, calling the 911 once they were lost. Calling for help, you know. So we contacted the Pima County's Sheriff Department, and through the Freedom of Information Act, we asked for all the phone calls that had to do with a migrant asking for help during a period of time of about a month, I think it was. And we got more than 200 phone calls. We had to listen to all of them to get not only the idea, but to be able to form a narrative arc through these phone calls. And we knew that their testimony was a key piece to make, to produce on the audience like an emotional impact and to be able to move them. So we have the story of Alvaro putting the crosses, and at the same time we have this other like narrative arc who are the voices of the migrants that are lost in the desert. And we knew that we had to be like, to use them, but to be very careful at the same time and very respectful in the way of using them. And I think that the result is you can't avoid feeling something once you are hearing those testimonies.
No, you're right. You cannot avoid this. And I try to imagine how could be the work of an author that has to face to this kind of material.
Yeah, it was hard to listen to all these testimonies. But at the same time, we felt like we had this big mission somehow to show the world what's happening there. It's so important. It's like we felt that we had the responsibility to tell the story in the best possible way. And we always say that we think that touching people's feelings is probably the best way to force them to listen and to be aware of what's happening. So that's how we confronted the work.
Yeah. Las Raras. What is Las Raras podcast? How is born? What are your mission? What are your production? How do you work?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are natively a podcast. We started working on 2015. I'm a sound engineer and Kata is a journalist. So it was like the perfect fit and media to combine our two fields of knowledge and interest. So we decided to make a podcast. In Latin America in general, there's a lack of audio productions. For example, in Chile, we don't have a public radio network or anything, so there's no like a tradition of radio. So we knew that there was like a need of telling stories through audio and telling stories that are not represented in the mainstream media in general. So we started this as a personal project, and very quickly we started to get very positive feedback across all Latin America and Spain and Latin people in the US. So from that on, we've been in an amazing journey, and nowadays we have I don't know, an amazing audience throughout all Latin America, Spain, and the US. So now it's like a responsibility for us to keep telling this kind of stories. And
we're about to publish our 5th season in a month. So we're like super busy, but happy to be doing this job, amazing job. Yeah, so we tell non-fiction stories.
Yeah, with non-fiction stories, we try to use documentary like recording on the field. We use a lot of soundscapes and original music. And so that's like part of our sound identity.
Good luck, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to you. So thank you to all of you for bring us your wonderful pieces in this edition of the IFC, in this first virtual edition of the International Future Conference. I would like to thank also Ketil and Willem. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Hello,
thank
hello.
you. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And now we listen to some words from Sylvia Lanner, the head of the International Future Conference.
Hello, dear participants of the IFC 2020. On behalf of the ABU Features Group, I want to thank you very much for participating in our conference. You can imagine when we started to plan this conference last year, we thought the IFC will take place in lovely Rome, hosted by the RAI. But then Corona destroyed our plan, and therefore 2020 was the premiere for the first virtual feature conference ever. And at that point, I would really like to thank Daria Corrias, Ketil Saugestad, and Willem Davids for the organization of this online event. It was a lot of work for the Tres Amigos, how they called themselves whenever they send us an email. And I'm very grateful indeed that they have made this effort. Many thanks also to all who contributed to the creation of this conference. It has been 3 inspiring days, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Next year, the WDR will have the pleasure to host the 47th International Features Conference in Cologne. Yeah. And to keep in mind that we are all planning to come, I will hand over the symbol of the IFC, the bull, to 2 persons, to Leslie Rosin and Adrian Winkler. They will organize the conference, and here is your bull, your friend for the next year. Have fun.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you so much.
We got it. So thank you very much for letting us host the next IFC in Cologne 2021. If you have never been to Cologne, it's not a problem. Cologne is quite an experience. With a famous cathedral, which took builders over 632 years to finish, and it's one of the biggest media centers in Germany, including the WDR, of course, where we are now. So WDR, der Westdeutsche Rundfunk, is the biggest public service broadcaster for a population of almost 18 million people only in the west of Germany. But don't worry, I won't get into details about the quite complicated German broadcasting system here. But you as audio experts might already know that WDR housed the famous Studio for Electronic Music, where composers like Karl-Heinz Stockhausen and Maurizio Kagel created their work. And today WDR is also known for its investigative journalism and documentary formats. And Germany as a whole has quite a rich and varied radio feature and podcast scene, as you will find out when you come here. So we have to explain where we are now. We are now in the concert hall of WDR, and we want to show you around where the next IFC will take place. So here you will be sitting. Of course, all according to Corona standards. And the good news is it's only 500 meters away from the cathedral. So don't worry, you can't miss us in Cologne. And the date will be announced as soon as the Corona options are a bit clearer than today. So see you all in Cologne next IFC 2021.
We are looking forward. Hop on.